Before we begin, tell me in the comments your city and your country. I love seeing people from around the world connecting through these forgotten stories of World War II. Now, let me take you to Tennessee, 1944, where a simple bowl of soup revealed a heartbreaking secret no one in the camp was prepared for. American cook Samuel Harris had served thousands of meals in the POW dining hall at Camp Forest. But one evening, something strange caught his attention. A young German POW, thin and pale, sat alone with his hands wrapped around a bowl of steaming vegetable soup, and tears began falling silently down his face. Not dramatic crying, not hysterics, just quiet, controlled grief that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside. Samuel approached him gently and asked, "Son, is something wrong with the meal?" The young man, 19-year-old Lucas Meyer, lifted his head slowly and whispered, "It smells like my mother's soup." And that moment changed everything. Lucas had arrived a week earlier with a group of 200 German POWs captured in Italy. Most of the prisoners were skinny and exhausted, but they still showed the usual mix of fear and pride. Lucas was different. He was detached, quiet, unwilling to speak unless spoken to, and he looked older than 19, as if life had already exhausted him. When his name was called on the arrival list, he barely acknowledged it. Inside the kitchen, Samuel whispered to another cook, "That kid's been through something bad?" Samuel didn't know how accurate that guess was. Most POWs devoured their first meal in camp. They were starving and grateful for anything warm. But not Lucas. He stared at the food line for a long time, hesitant, almost anxious. When he finally reached the counter, he whispered, "Thank you," then sat far away from everyone. Samuel noticed instantly. This wasn't the normal behavior of a captured soldier. This was someone carrying a different kind of wound. And then came the night of the soup. Potatoes, onions, carrots, beef, a simple recipe Samuel had used since the start of the war. But when Lucas smelled it, something cracked inside him. He sat down slowly, leaned over the bowl, and tears began falling into the steam. The entire dining hall fell silent. Samuel knelt beside him. "Did I do something wrong?" Lucas shook his head. "No. It's too good. It smells like home." He swallowed hard and whispered, "My mother made this soup every Sunday. Before she died, every POW around them froze. Even the guards stopped moving." Lucas said nothing else. He just kept crying silently as Samuel sat with a hand on his shoulder. The next morning, Samuel found something on the kitchen counter. A small wooden carving of a soup bowl with steam lines etched above it. Underneath, a note in broken English. "Thank you for reminding me of home." L. Samuel kept that carving for decades. Lucas began sitting quietly near the kitchen after work assignments, not asking for extra food, not breaking rules, just staying close to the warmth, the smell, and the routine. Samuel noticed Lucas watched the cooking process closely, how vegetables were chopped, how spices were added, how the fire was maintained. When Samuel asked why, Lucas replied softly, "Cooking is the only thing left that makes sense." Samuel felt something twist inside him. This wasn't a soldier. This was a displaced soul. One night, a violent winter storm hit Tennessee. Power went out. Barracks flooded. Cold wind tore through the camp. Samuel rushed to the kitchen to check on supplies, and found Lucas already there. He had sealed the windows with blankets, stacked firewood, saved the food crates from freezing, and lit the stove. Samuel asked, "How did you know to do all this?" Lucas answered, "My mother taught me how to protect a home when everything outside is falling apart." Samuel had to turn away to hide his tears. When the Red Cross delivered updated POW records, Samuel overheard officers discussing Lucas. His mother had starved to death during a brutal winter in Germany. Food shortages were severe. Rationing was strict. Civilians were dying quietly, unrecorded, unseen. And then Samuel heard the part that broke him. Lucas enlisted only because soldiers received larger food rations, not because he believed in the war. He joined to keep himself alive and to bring food home to his mother. But when he returned on leave, she was already gone. Samuel put a hand on his forehead, trying not to cry. That simple bowl of soup hadn't just reminded Lucas of home. It had brought back the person he'd fought to save, but couldn't. It was a taste of love and loss, all in one warm, heartbreaking spoonful. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Later that day, Samuel found Lucas sitting alone behind the kitchen, looking utterly empty. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, Lucas confessed, "I joined the army to get bread for my mother, but when I came home, I was too late." Samuel sat beside him, his voice quiet but firm. "You didn't fail her. You fought for her. She'd be proud of you." Lucas covered his face and cried. It wasn't a loud, dramatic display, but the silent, shoulder-shaking grief of someone who has truly lost everything. As the weeks turned into months, Lucas became a quiet cornerstone of the camp. He wasn't just another prisoner. He was a bridge. He calmed newly arrived POWs, translated for the guards, and fixed broken tools without being asked. He would even share his own small rations with prisoners who were sick. The American guards started calling him the boy with the old soul. Even the most hardened POWs, who still harbored a deep hatred for the Americans, respected Lucas. He didn't see sides or uniforms. He only saw people. When the war finally ended in 1945, the news of release sent waves of celebration across the camp. Men cheered, hugged, and dreamt of home. But amid the jubilation, Lucas stood alone, a solitary figure in a sea of joy. Samuel approached him gently. "You're going home, son?" Lucas just stared at the ground, his voice hollow. "I don't have a home anymore." In that moment, Samuel understood. The war hadn't just taken Lucas's freedom. It had stolen his past and his future, leaving a void that no victory could fill. On Lucas's last night at the camp, Samuel cooked. He prepared the very same potato soup that had first broken the boy's composure. He placed the steaming bowl in front of Lucas and whispered, "For your mother." This time, the tears fell quietly as Lucas ate, a silent tribute to a memory. And beside him, Samuel cried too, sharing in a grief that transcended language and enmity. The next morning, as the POWs boarded trucks to begin their long journey home, Lucas approached Samuel. He was holding something wrapped in a piece of cloth. It was the old iron ladle from the kitchen. He tried to return it, but Samuel simply shook his head. "Keep it," he said. "Start a kitchen someday." Overwhelmed, Lucas hugged him tightly. "Thank you for treating me like a son when I had nothing left." Then he climbed onto the truck and was gone, disappearing into the dust. Samuel never saw him again. 40 years passed. In 1984, long after Samuel had retired from his life as an army cook, a letter arrived at his small home in Tennessee. It was postmarked from Germany, the handwriting neat and precise. Inside, Samuel found a photograph. It showed a small, charming bakery in Bremen, Germany. Painted proudly above the door were the words, "Clara's Kitchen, homemade soups and bread." Tucked beside the photo was a short note. "Dear Samuel, I built this shop in honor of my mother, and of the man who reminded me I still had a future. Your ladle hangs on the wall. Every bowl I serve is a thank you to you. With love, Lucas Meyer." Samuel placed the letter and the small wooden bird carving in a special box he kept beside his bed. Years later, whenever his grandchildren would ask about the little carving, he'd hold it in his hand and say, "That came from a boy who arrived as my enemy," and left as a reminder that kindness survives any war. It started with a simple bowl of soup, a grieving boy, and an American cook who with one small act helped rebuild a broken life. In a world drowning in conflict, It was a quiet moment of humanity. One bowl of soup that, in the end, healed two hearts. Thanks for watching.